Thank you, Honorable Berker. Mrs. Pelly. Honorable Berker.
Madam Speaker, it's significant that this report was considered in yesterday's committee on the first day of April. A farcical day for a farcical process leading to a farcical report. Yet, it's a report that sadly is not an April Fool's joke. Madam Speaker, this House generates stacks of reports, agendas, and minutes of meetings which fill archives, servers, and libraries. Much of it meaningless, expensive, full of nothing documents that change very little for our people, a waste. But every now and then, Parliament has the ability to take regular A4 paper and give it remarkable power, to change lives with laws, to table budgets, and because of the power in the Constitution and the Money Bills Act, gives Parliament the power to amend bad budgets. And yesterday we had the chance and almost the numbers to amend a bad budget. We could have fulfilled our constitutional duty to do so, to protect South Africans, to protect them from a budget that includes VAT increases, that doesn't move the needle enough for an efficient government that creates jobs and grows the economy. And that chance was spectacularly squandered. It was squandered by Action SA, the IFP, and the ANC, who voted on a version of a report which only came into existence hours after the meeting and the voting had concluded. Now, sure, supporters of this April Fool's Day farce are very quick to point out while they accepted the fiscal framework, they're making recommendations to relook at tax increases. Madam Speaker, the archives are full of reports with ignored recommendations. Why don't we ask the Auditor General how delinquent ANC local governments across the country respond to their recommendations year after year? Why don't we ask those who worked on the Zondo Commission what they think the effect of their recommendations has been? After all, the Zondo Commission detailed how the Honourable Joe Moswangani was complicit in state capture. Yet that honourable member is here with us today. He spoke just earlier. And he chaired the farcical, procedurally flawed meeting yesterday. Reports in the hands of ANC-led governments mean nothing. Let me be specific. Action SA took the votes it received from market-friendly and centre-right South Africans and sold them out
Honourable Member,
to support the framework for what?
Order, Honourable Becker. Can you take a seat? Honourable Member, what's the point of order?
No, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. I'm raising on Rule 85. The Honourable Member is casting aspersion on Honourable Maswanganye. He says Honourable Maswanganye is complicit in terms of the state capture. So if you want to do that, he must bring a substantive motion. Thanks.
Honourable Member, I would listen to the Hansard and come back with the ruling. Honourable Makhlakis, what are you rising on now?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you consider the Hansard, will you also consider that the Honourable Member actually quoted the Zondo report, which was a fact? Thank you.
Honourable Member, I said I will look at the matter and come back to the House with the ruling. Can you proceed, Honourable Becker?
Madam Speaker, I've consulted the Hansard dictionary on what casting aspersions means.
Honorable member, can you please proceed with your speech?
None of what I've said was false or misleading. It's all very well documented. And for me to damage your reputation, you need to have one.
Honorable member, on order, honorable member. I have said on the matter, because there was a point of order raised, I will come back to the House. So can you proceed with your speech on the report?
It's last start.
As I was saying, Madam Speaker, what did Action SA sell their voters out for? 5 minutes of media coverage? Promises of future cabinet positions?
Insults.
Certainly not to stop taxes, because those taxes and those increases are still very much baked into the fiscal framework. Action SA has said it's in Parliament to be a constructive opposition. Its only significant achievement so far is to support a report enabling an ANC anti-poor, anti-growth and anti-jobs VAT-based budget.
Go home. We hate the ANC when that's a man.
And so there are only two rational explanations for what they were thinking and what the IFP might have been thinking. Either they were the April Fools and they genuinely thought they were changing the budget with their flimsy, pointless recommendations, and they didn't come to the committee with even a basic understanding of the Money Bills Act. Or, alternatively, these parties knew exactly what they were doing and were trying to make South Africans the victims, selling us down the river for an ANC VAT-based budget. And either way, what the IFP and ASA did was treachery. The DA, on the other hand, is very clear about what we're doing, and we've been consistent, both in our intentions yesterday and through the course of the 7th administration. We joined this government to drive efficient spending, grow the economy and create jobs, not to enable the worst parts of the ANC. The ANC will have to turn to Action SA for that.
Kylie is poor.
We've been met with an ANC that's refused to upgrade the economy or to compromise. They don't want coalition partners. They want supplicants. Welcome, ASA.
Goodbye.
I will say one thing.
Order, honorable members.
I will say one thing about all the paper that Parliament generates, Madam Speaker. Even the reports and motions that achieve nothing do record our deeds or misdeeds. And what will they record now? Today, you, honourable members, have the same opportunity Action SA and the AFP had yesterday, and squandered either for cheap political points or as victims of the saddest April Fool's joke in parliamentary history. So your choice is as follows. 1, you can choose to vote for a report that keeps the fiscal framework as it is, that enshrines tax increases, enshrines bad economic policy, and supports the anti-poor, anti-growth and anti-jobs ANC budget. Or 2, you can support us in opposing this increase.
Support you.
As the DA, we will remain on course. We'll pursue an efficient government, growth and jobs, and vote firmly against this farce of a report. We reject it with the content it deserves.
We reject you.
It's not worth the paper it was printed on.
Angry about the blue lights, no?
Honorable Maude, yes. Honorable Van Rooyen, what's your point of order? Sorry, Honorable Reddy.
Madam Speaker, I rise in terms of Rule 65. You know, while the previous speaker, it's not every day that we like to hear what the DA has to say, and today we wanted to hear, but members were actually speaking into the mic, switching on their mic, and as a result of that, we were unable to hear the speaker. Now, the sound, the acoustics is extremely bad on this side of the House. I'm really appealing to you, Speaker, to get some control here and inform members that they should not howl so much so that we cannot hear the speakers. Please.
Thank you, Honorable Reddy. That point I made myself for all of you in this House. to actually be in order. Honorable Mawute, take your podium.
Thank you, Speaker. Greetings, President and Commander-in-Chief, Honorable Julius Malema, officials, commissars, and fighters. The EFF does not support the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals as tabled by the Minister of Finance. Speaker, we wrote to you last night an urgent letter requesting the withdrawal of the report on the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals adopted by the Standing Committee on Finance yesterday, adopted during a very chaotic meeting and in a procedurally illegal manner. In our letter, we demonstrated that the committee failed to follow a very basic but essential legal requirement in terms of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act of 2009, and requested that you withdraw this item from the order paper, but you chose not to do so. This is what will ultimately collapse the confused GNU government, not the present backroom dealings and backstabbing we are witnessing, but the failure to follow a simple legislative process. With all the confusion we witnessed in the committee yesterday, we are reminded of a giant of our struggle, Mama Winnie Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela, who passed away on this day 7 years ago. She once said, and I quote, "We have betrayed our people. Our struggle has been betrayed. The ANC has become something we never envisaged." And I end quote. This quote rings truer than ever before, as the ANC, now hiding behind the so-called GNU, continues to sell out the aspirations of our people. The less said about Action SA's misunderstanding of the legislation which guides the process and procedure to amend and approve the proposed budget as tabled by the minister, the better. We will take time outside the sitting and explain, perhaps in a more simpler manner, that a budget is not passed based on negotiations of good faith, but is a creature of statutes. But let's deal with the crux of the matter, the debate, and what has caused so much chaos with this budget. Speaker, allow us to take the educational approach, and then we'll make some of the proposals that should have found expression in amending the report. Firstly, the procedure to process the fiscal framework and revenue proposal tabled by the Finance Minister is guided by the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act. Let me remind you, this is the very same legislation that, when it was introduced in the late 1990s, the ANC and the then Finance Minister Trevor Manuel did not want this law because they wanted all the powers in the hands of a government to pass a budget. But that is not what the Constitution says. Secondly, once the budget is tabled by the Finance Minister as a proposal, it is up to us as members of Parliament who have legislative responsibility to finalize the budget. We cannot send it back to the Finance Minister. It becomes our baby, and we must see it through to the end. Number three, like we said in our letter to you, Speaker, this report was adopted unprocedural because despite our advice in the committee, the ANC refused to hear the advice and follow simple procedure. They could not allow for this to happen because they wanted to hoodwink Action SA into adopting a report they seem not to understand in its implications. And for that, we don't blame them because they simply didn't know. Lastly, Speaker, all other money bills, this includes the appropriation bill, division of revenue bills, and all other bills, including ultimately VAT, must be consistent with this fiscal framework and revenue proposal. You cannot vote for a VAT increase today and hope that when it comes in the form of a separate bill, it is different. It will be inconsistent with the law and this fiscal framework. President, we're making simple proposals as the EFF. We're saying we reject the Finance Minister's proposal of VAT, and we say it must be kept at 14%. We're saying let's adjust the personal income tax bracket in line with inflation so that when middle and low income earners receive annual adjustments on their wages, they are not pushed into higher brackets. We're saying let's increase corporate income tax and introduce new forms of wealth tax that target apartheid inheritance. We made a proposal for an amendment to increase funding for SARS so that they can go and collect 800 billion rands that is there uncollected. We made a proposal that let's give the Parliamentary Budget Office, together with the FFC, the mandate to recalibrate the budget, allocate additional money for the appointment of doctors, of nurses, of teachers, police officers, and more general workers in municipalities. We made all these concrete, practical, and implementable proposals in the meeting, but there was never a procedural and legal way to put this before a decision of the committee. Instead, Speaker, they were just ignored. Now, this is what is going to happen. If you vote for this fiscal framework and revenue proposal today against the advice, we are going to challenge you in court for failing to follow the law that is clear and basic. I thank you.